If we go back to Adolf Hitler, we talked about in past previous episodes how there have been entities, extraterrestrial aliens that have helped and affiliated sorts with them, with Germany, but it is opposing thought form that the Nazis reportedly created base in Antarctica during the war, and others that improvise that it may or not have been true at the time, but they may have a certain type of extraterrestrial race. Whether they have been a good or a bad leeway to point, these entities may not have been good and may have coordinated in a wrong wavelength. And unfortunately, it may have had it happen on an outstanding war over the ocean's perimeter at the time.
Welcome to episode 64. Blue, how are you?
I'm very well today, Mike.
Hey, what are we going to talk about today in episode 64?
One of the things we'll be discussing about is Antarctica, Admiral Byrd, and Operation HighJump. What it had to do with the Nazis, affiliated reversed extraterrestrial engineering, bases, and the imposable thought forms of what's going on that humans are not aware of behind the scenes.
Wow, I can't wait to get into that because we've talked about Antarctica briefly before, and I got my own input on that, of course. Hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. You can reach out to us on the socials all the time. If we're not on a platform where you prefer to get your stuff, well, let us know and we'll try to go to where you get your stuff. And, please go ahead and like, subscribe, share, follow, all those fun words there. If you would, that would help us. And, hey, look, we're matching again today. And, again, we don't call each other and say, what are you wearing? But we match again today, so that's a great sign. And go ahead, you can join the team, too. You can match with us. Just click on the links that you see in the comments there. Blue, let's get right into it.
Absolutely. Operation HighJump, officially titled the United States Navy Antarctic Development Program, between 1946 and 47, also called Task Force 68, was the United States Navy operation established the Antarctic Research Base, Little America. The operation was organized by Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, Jr. and Rear Admiral Ethan Eric Larson, commanding officer. Now, what was included was 4,700 men, 70 ships, and 33 aircraft. The distribution scenes of what really went on around that time. Now, what gets interesting is they had want to utilize air bases at the time, extorting knowledge of the geographic and geological equations of the area and the conditions it beholds. Also, the objectives they had with the Nano expedition. Now, the secrets that go even further with this goes into the Antarctic Treaty between the countries of the world and what they had delved into with the Intergarthan realms. Did you know that the Nazis went down to Antarctica in the 30s to research? Why? What was their reason? What secret missions did they have? What were they trying to succeed down there? What was the reason for Admiral Byrd to even come and deal with the Navy and supposedly a war of reverse technology being implemented? A race, if you will. Now, they're keeping a close eye at the time, United States, on the Nazi technology and progress as they watch the world come to a war. What gets interesting is they had a huge scale mission called Operation HighJump down to Antarctica. And what Mr. Byrd encountered there was pretty scary. along with also, which was something beyond the eyes and knowing of mankind. What were the global powers holding, besides what we already know of the inner world?
Yeah, you had mentioned the global powers, and it's amazing because if you do any research on Antarctica, there's a lot of countries involved now. Everybody's got their flag in the ground. Everybody's got their couple researchers, their scientists or whatever. And it's just like you said, there's a reason why the Nazis went there. And there's a reason why we went there after that. There's something more there. There's something we're not being told. Antarctica, now I know we're gonna get all sorts of mail on this, but there's certain areas in the world and in this country, for instance, that you can't fly over. Okay, you can't fly over Area 51. You can't fly over the White House. There's certain restricted airspaces. Antarctica is one of those airspaces. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, you can't fly over Antarctica anyway because logistically and all that. I'm just saying, it's a restricted airspace. You can't go there. It's very hard to visit Antarctica. You can't go, honey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, let's go to Antarctica. It's not real. They don't want people there. They allow a few people there on a very limited basis, and you can't see anything basically. But there's a lot more there, and you had mentioned the Arcturian realms. Are we thinking that, because you said that there was reverse technology, by the Nazis, and probably even by us, are we hinting at there's actual living entities there? There's something from some other place, some other time, some other dimension in Antarctica that we don't know about?
Well, if we go back to Adolf Hitler, we talked about in past previous episodes how there have been entities, extraterrestrial aliens that have helped and affiliated sorts with them, with Germany, but it is opposing thought form that the Nazis reportedly created based in Antarctica during the war. And others that improvise that it may or not have been true at the time, but they may have a certain type of extraterrestrial race, whether they have been a good or a bad leeway to point. These entities may not have been good and may have coordinated in a wrong wavelength. And unfortunately, it may have had it happen on an outstanding war over the ocean's perimeter at the time. So, yes, there's sorts of technology. We have talked about these UFOs before, that the so-called the Nazis that they implemented even around the time Adolf Hitler and the lady that had worked with him uncovering this, that had maintained that they have bases around certain perimeters. Now, there's concerning points that there may be certain races that could impose a threat. And just like Mr. Byrd was saying, that in the future we will be faced by an enemy that can fly pole to pole. There may be a certain status points that negative entities have utilized with other countries, sectors, beings, and have been behind the scenes for numerous years. And I'm not saying all of Antarctica is bad, but I am stating that they could utilize certain areas there, and some of it might not be good. And some of the reports with some of these people from HighJump itself, Secretary of Defense for itself committed suicide, allegedly jumped out of the window after the HighJump thing, babbling about aliens in the days before he ended up committing suicide. Yes, it's concerning. We do know that there are good ETs out there. There are bad ones. But there are intergalactic wars, and there are wars being utilized by mankind between each other with reverse technologies and assisted by other entities. I don't believe many people know about Operation HighJump, the real modes of effect with it, not just the parts that dealt with the military and excavating at the time and finding out what Antarctica was.
It's amazing to me because not only were the Nazis there, but they traveled. Hitler put Himmler on the road looking for these religious and paranormal artifacts. They were actively seeking the chalice. They were actively seeking biblical things, the staff, Moses' staff. They were actively seeking the Ark of the Covenant. They were actively, so they went to Antarctica, and they come back, and it's amazing to me because there's a thing called the Nazi bell, and we've probably talked about this before. The Nazi bell looks like a bell-shaped thing, but it has supposedly the powers to move in time. Now, there's been reports in the Pennsylvania area that this thing showed up like many years later. There's been evidence that this thing did go some other place, some other time back when the Nazis had it as well. So who only knows where that reverse technology is, what company owns those rights now here in, because we took all the scientists we could, and Russia got some of the other scientists. That's our space program. Wernher von Braun is how we got our space program going. It's how NASA was built. It's how we're able to go to these places. You look now, we're still concentrated on Antarctica. But pay attention, folks, because we've talked about it before. Not only Antarctica, but the moon as well. China's on the moon. China wants to build bases on the moon. They want to control the moon. What controls our tidal waves? What controls the tides? What controls Earth, basically? The moon. Now, I think the moon has that's another whole show. I think it's not what it appears to be as well. But is Antarctica a threat to us? Do we have to worry about Antarctica? Or are we just okay?
No, it's just more or less a much more advanced geological feature that certain countries would want to affiliate utilizing, especially when they have known or could know about other races of entities, even humanoids. And Mr. Byrd's expeditions wanted to go to the advanced discoveries with weather, climate, geography, including what was recently posted. I had said about last week, I believe, and about the inner advanced races of Agartha, not just dealing with reverse technologies and the races that deal with Nazis, but also maintaining that the run to a higher advanced humanoids and geographical under inner city with crystalline buildings and buildings that actually use hyper electromagnetism and anti-gravity propulsion. And by doing that, he was able to meet these entities that had really blonde hair. They were tall, they were whitish in skin, they were very intellectual. And when we call them nowadays, it would be a mix of a Pleiadian Nordic species. Now, I'm going to admit to you, the Agarthan realms runs on many different dimensions. And there are utilizations of negative entities that could maintain that, but it's mostly intact on a good leeway point. It has a very, very, very vast amounts of technological achievements, as well as distributions that humans have not known about for thousands of years and have been hidden, as well as what Vatican have on priority skill with the higher races evolved for and maintain. So that means that they have a coordinated empire there that had affiliated with motivational codes with these star units and had maintained them. It wasn't just in Germany at the time with Adolf Hitler. They had motivated and maneuvered this around to other areas. So, and the possibility that others could claim that technology. And whatever happened when he died, whatever happened to him, after he returned active duty with chairman for government programs helping communist refugees. In March 1955, he led phase 1 of the Operation Deep Freeze to the Antarctic and died on March 11th in 1957, was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. So it's just funny how there wasn't much time in between and certain other things happened around that as well.
Wow. And then you look at what we do. I mean, if your eyebrow isn't raised, if you're not eager to peek behind the curtain and see what's going on after we're talking about this, I don't know, maybe you don't have a pulse, maybe you need to check for one. But you look back, this is what we do. Look at Tesla. When he died, they confiscated all his papers and all his findings, and they quashed his electrical system. It's just the whole thing's amazing to me. We could spend the whole show on Antarctica, but I see we also want to talk about Niagara Falls. What's going on with Niagara Falls?
No, don't get confused. It's not Niagara Falls in Canada, people. We're talking about Niagara Falls, New York. And what is signalized with that is Statue of Liberty and Nikola Tesla. Now, formerly around the time that Mr. Nikola Tesla had appeared in New York, he had appeared right before the Statue of Liberty had been as resurrected outwards. Lady Liberty. What becomes interesting before we get into the Niagara Falls part is what he has to do with the actual torch of Liberty itself. Why the original Liberty looks different than what it is now, and it is made of copper. The reasons for the copper is the high amounts of polarized energy that it can incubate. And the reason why it demineralized into its tone now is because of the salt oxidization. A lot of people pay attention to that, but that is original colors for a reason. It creates electromagnetic fields and currents that are better in distributing things when you have a lot of copper. And when we're going into the actual torch itself, because of supposedly that what had happened at the time with the torch, that since the Black Tom explosion of July 30th, 1916, largest acts of sabotage for Pearl Harbor, but it ended up reaching up to there and hitting and supposedly damaging the torch. But the torch had been a distribution scheme maintained, had some type of interference, a wind turbine of energy maintained by Nikola Tesla, which would be called an ocean wind farm.
You know, this is just amazing to me because, first off, I want to tell Florida Man, because if you're familiar with Florida Man, every weird story, and we both live in Florida, every weird story you hear always starts with a Florida Man. There's a Florida Man Games here, and it was just what you think it is. I just want to warn Florida Man, do not roll up to the Statue of Liberty with your little trailer and try to take all the copper. The whole thing's made of copper. You're not going to get the Statue of Liberty to the recycling plant. That's not going to happen, okay? Second off, it just further goes to show what we've said about Tesla, what I just said about Tesla before. There's a lot more to these stories than we're led to know. There's a lot, you know, when the Vatican's involved, when Tesla's involved, when all these people are involved, and we're talking about things like power, electricity, things that can control people's lives. That's one of the things that separates us from a third world country. As much as the socialists on the left want to create a third world country here and make us socialist, communist, Marxists, as much as that they want that to happen, that's the difference between us. That's a fundamental difference. We have electrical power. Any strong industrialized nation that's not a third world nation has electricity. We're very short time away from that being all knocked out. It's very fragile. The system's very fragile. I'd like to know, do you think we could resort back? Do you think we could recoup this Tesla-like technology? Do you think we could take this old technology and get it to work if something did happen to our electrical grid?
Very, very possible. Yes. And also the implementations of knowing that Lady Liberty herself is struck by lightning at least 600 times every year. And how that magnifies with the copper itself because of the electromagnetic fields. And besides that, we're even going deeper, understanding that the alien structure at the core is the height of innovation at the time, capable of shifting in the wind without cracking or bending. So there's an innovative speed that goes with this itself. Yes, it had assistance from entities like Tesla. It had assistance with others. There's even hidden agenda speeds underneath Liberty that people are not even allowed to go under. Holds documentations and other things as well.
So,
and then we're going to even go any deeper about New York City and Nikola Tesla, who was the innovator that maintained neon lights and discovered it. It was him. Now, that in 1893 in the Columbia exhibit they talked about. And it's just neon lights. I mean, the maintainer between him and another motivated what is now with the technological achievements through electricity and how to utilize its energy in many different ways. And with the Niagara Falls, too. Expansion of the hydroelectric wonders that he had created. The power plants there, maintaining the stability, going online. Tesla ushered in a new era for the natural wonders, leading electric producer, powering the elevated railways and the street lights of New York City itself.
It's amazing. It's amazing stuff. I wish Tesla was still here today. I wonder if he'd be partners with Musk. I wonder if Musk isn't Tesla reincarnated somehow. That's another show.
Well, Donald Trump does code things about Tesla out there. If people pay attention.
There you go. All right, now let's talk about the SCP Foundation.
SCP-064, Flawed von Neumann structure. SCP-064 is a light brown earthenware brick composed primarily of silicon oxides and some unknown organic matter. Subject weighs 1 kg and measures some 10 centimeters. Its surface is smooth and flat, and with some minor cosmetic chips. Now, by and large, it just looks like similar to most solid bricks. But what gets interesting, when it was left on, if lying on a flat expanse of soft earth, it will begin to multiply through an unknown mechanism. This mechanism, close observation, reveals the appearance of irregular lattice silicon fibers in the shape of the original object, which multiplies and fills and solidifies. And eventually, because it's familiar to some type of fungi, root structure, it eventually will turn into a compound building structure. But if it bumps into any other diametric speed, it will decomposite on itself. The structural integrity would become very high. So they try to level themselves unless they hit another structure. If they hit another structure, they decomposite until you can maneuver the actual brick itself to another spot.
All right, I'm way confused because I'm seeing it and it looks like a brick. In my mind, I'm saying it's a brick, but you're telling me there's some sort of growth is possible?
That can fundamentally turn it into a building structure. If it's placed on a flat surface and the diametrics is aligned with it, it actually builds up upon itself and copies. If it hits another structure and or entity, it decomposites because it's bumping into that. It would either have to maneuver around or lose its value, go back to the original wave phase. Makes you wonder, like, did they make something similar to that in the inner realms or other advanced type of civilizations? Easier way to fabricate things together. I mean, there are compositions, there are elements out there currently that scientists utilizing that can make things grow at an alarming rate. It makes you wonder. There are certain things out there that could do that similar if the compound is placed proper.
You know, the first thing that pops in my mind when you're talking about this is the pyramids. Maybe this is how the pyramids were built.
You never know. I mean, there could be other similar objects or similar buildings that could have that. We just recently talked about the crystalline buildings. That can't be far off. There are ways to manipulate things that through hyper-electromagnetism, anti-gravity. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a way to manipulate the elements as well.
Do I have to be worried about SCP-064?
I would not have a concern over it, more or less, if it it creates an oxide effect, but more or less, I mean, I don't see any possible posing threat. It's more or less they still had to figure it out and articulate reasons for it and its growth and its decomposition. But if I would have run into something like that, I would, well, first and foremost, if you see something growing at an alarming rate like that, you might want to call it out, but you're just running. But with this original site of where it was, they are still figuring it out, and the Foundation members keep it at a certain site. I'm sure they maneuver it around and see where it goes from there, because there could be a good wavelength for this for mankind if they could utilize it proper. Easier to fabricate things into existence. I mean, maybe the elements could maintain better, but it decompensates easy, so that's the only problem. And there's too many materials in it that could impose a problem if people don't use it with other property as well.
What's the next SCP we're going to talk about?
070, Iron Wings. This is an interesting one. It appears to be a human male of Native American descent, with a normal appearance save for a pair of rusty metal links emerging from his back. How it came to be, and what these are, they're flat iron bars about 6 meters wide, connected end to end, rivets to form an articular length of metal over 2 meters long. They have various lengths on each one, and each tip of the barbed arrowhead. Other than that, the entity appears to have no anomalous properties besides the wings. They appear to act independently, though, of the person they are attached to. And with this person, he had pretty much passed out and woken up with this on his wing, on his back, and not knowing what went on. Now, if it is trying to get harmed, if they try to harm the wing, it does show repeatedly, that besides having no control over them, that signs of physiological distress, including sweating, screaming in pain, reduced blood flow to the face. So even with the wings intact to the entity, and even though they're independent, that entity still has to feel it's the pain from it. It's joined and fused together. So a transactory effect is something may have implemented itself onto the entity. They have, and if you have, just like it said, passed out and ended up with that the next day, there possibly could have been an implementation from someone putting that onto this being. And now he's stuck as a paranormal code. There's no way they really can remove the wings at the time without really destroying the person. And they do have it facilitated at one of the facilities in monitorization.
Does this sound like this is some sort of genetic testing or some sort of human testing gone bad? I mean, this sounds like this entity or this SCP-070 wasn't born like this, like it was created. It's autobiomechanical engineering, a product that was implemented onto him. So he had claimed no knowledge of the event that the wings had got onto his back. That's what's amazing to me. I mean, even back when I used to drink, I used to wake up the next day and there would be bits and pieces missing or what have you. To not know how that happened is something else. But I guess it's like a surgery. You know, you get knocked out and, you know, your body has changed. It's amazing to me that it represents, with the wings, to me, I'm picturing some sort of angelic type creature. And then with being of some sort of metallic structure, I'm thinking of the Man of Steel. I'm thinking of Superman. Do you think these... Well... Go ahead.
It gets interesting because they had interviews with this entity. He has a social security number, and he's a U.S. citizen. But he claims to be a member of the Kiowa tribe. And claims to not know how the wings came to be, only remembering waking up in a scrapyard the next day. with after taking a lot of peyote the night before.
There you go.
This is interesting. We were going back to the Native Americans again. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if we had a higher entity just implementing this onto this being. Native American Indians. It's so interesting with the tribes and the way they know things with the higher gods, the way they know things with the paranormal, the way they know things with the lands, with the energy. Believe it or not, they know a lot of things, certain tribes, I'm sure, about the inner earthen world and the races there.
Yeah, you know, there was no TV back then. What else were they going to do? They had to study what was around them, and it behooved them to listen to the guidance from these. You often hear them talk about star people and so forth, and you know, the people of the sky or what have you. We talked about the moon-eyed people. We talked about all sorts of stuff, Native American or Indian type ties to that. Just fascinating to me. I'm glad we're able to talk about these SCPs. Now, one more thing about this SCP. Do I have to worry? Am I worried here?
Well, it stays like confined, and it doesn't maneuver around the entity that's joined to the wings, and they keep it in one area in the Foundation site itself. And it would probably, if it felt threatened, lash out at others and use the tips of its wings to cut them. But like I said, the wings of it act on its own accord. There's a possibility that the entity that's wearing it could use an accordance of its own and actually be able to find a way to manipulate it, manualize itself, and the wings. It could pose as a better, or could pose as less of a threat. And possibly reenact that person to a normal withdrawal speed, instead of something more paranormal and they can't do nothing about it because of the locomotives with the wings itself.
And what do we have to report from the Space Force and the Federation?
RFK Jr., Elon Musk, and more reacted to the news that Telegram messaging app CEO Pavel Durov was arrested in France by speaking out in support of free speech on social media. The need to protect the free speech has never been more urgent, RFK Jr. wrote on X, reacting to the news just days after he endorsed former President Trump. And we can understand that we have the current administration, they're going to do everything in their power to disengage the reality of the truth of real speech of what's going on. And that now they're going to try to arrest people for truth. That this is getting a little bit ridiculous out there. We have a right to protect the rights and what we know and what we don't understand. We keep things proper for this planet and the country, not to disengage others from the real truths out there. And it's just another thing, and you know, with RFK Jr. says this is a good thing too, though. But says Donald Trump will announce Democrats joining campaign soon. So yeah, he's got allies in the Democratic Party planning on throwing their support behind him publicly soon. I wouldn't blame them too. I mean, just the current administration. I don't want to call that that. They don't even know how to be who they are and act proper, even through their affiliated race they deal with. Well, we already know that they're Draconians. A lot of them run through that. But regardless, now maybe we should need to take a stand and do what's right for mankind, for the planet, for the creatures, for everything.
Yeah, powerful message there, and I agree. I mean, we're losing free speech, folks. I mean, hats off to guys like RFK Jr., hats off to guys like Musk, who bought Twitter to try to get Donald Trump with True Social. You know, Zuckerberg just came out with the apology again. He apologized. You know, supposedly it's all fine as long as he says he's not going to, you know, donate another $700 million to the left like he did last time in key voting areas. Now they've released through the Senate and through the investigative hearings in the House that Zuckerberg admits that he was told to thwart down the laptop story years ago in 2019, 2020 by the FBI. He was instructed to do that. But he sees that was wrong and he's sorry again. That's not going to happen again. That's bullcrap. The whole thing's bullcrap. How about all the people that were deplatformed? How about all the people whose lives were changed? How about the election which was overtaken? All this because of a lack of free speech or people wanting to impede on everyone else's free speech. And I'm trying to take over your spot, but you're spot on. This is a horrible thing. Horrible thing. The war is on free. Folks, if you don't vote the correct way in November, we're done. Okay? We're done. We're done. Just forget it. Because the first thing they take away is the speech. The second thing is the guns. Look around the world. Everybody that's got a dominant, overpowering, dictatorship type leadership or third world country, the people don't have free speech and they don't have guns. Hey, are you ready to talk about the ET of the week?
Yes, obviously. Arcturians. Arcturians are a very advanced extraterrestrial race. The Arcturus is a star system. They wish to share their knowledge and their wisdom with the citizens of Earth. Running as extra hyperdimensional codes, they could affiliate to starseed generators as well as their own maintenance speeds. They have a blue shell, so it's light to blue color intact. They do look more humanoid to a perception about their face modules, but they're more ET humanoid, so they have a generic code. They're loving and peaceful beings who are willing to communicate and work with any soul that wishes to travel with them to a higher level of consciousness. So we know we have the levels of the extra hyperdimensionals of ET races. Then we have the levels that run through an even higher level. And those levels that help awaken and raise up the frequency streams from lower inert codes throughout the ages. These races, they're more closely affiliated to they run through the hyperautomatons and as well as the maintainment codes that they have with the Atlantean races. Star selects they have on their barriers as well as maintaining codes of hypertelepathy and telekinetic powers. And they have a really, really high amount of healing activation speeds within them. They are healers.
You know, I'm looking at these pictures that you sent, and I noticed one key thing in every photo of these Arcturians. They have some sort of center thing here, kind of like we would talk about a third eye. They have some sort of crystallized thing. Is that their third eye?
Well, the certain Syrians, as well as Pleiadians, and like I said, we told you the Andromeda sectors. But when it comes to the Arcturians themselves, they always have this sort of indent in their middle perimeter. And it is an activator. And it does help with their telekinetic powers as well as their hyper telepathic communication.
So if I come across one of these beings, it's probably benevolent, it's probably good, it's probably safe, it's probably a good thing.
Yes, there have been many humans that have come across Arcturians throughout the years. More or less visionary status codes. Or if they were lifted up, they've been lifted up through a hyperdimensional wave phase. And they run through the communities with Sirius, Andromeda, Orion, Pleiades, and the Lyra and Empire star sectors. So the Arcturian races are very ancient and they've been around for many eons.
I wonder how impactful they've actually been that we don't know about on our civilization, such as teaching, guiding. We talked about earlier in the show about the Indians or Native Americans, talking about the star people. I wonder how much they were involved. Do you think they were involved a great deal in civilization and our development and evolution of mankind, or do you think it was minimal?
They would regularly incarnate on Earth and would have been involved in Earth's evolution itself. That's why they look a little humanoid to an extent. They have been ways to incarnate through humans. They've been ways to incarnate through their forms. And there have been ways to occupy the evolutionary status code of Earth and other terraforms.
Awesome stuff. And again, just like that, we're out of time. We may have to do more shows or something, Blue. I don't know what. We always seem to run out of time, but that's good. That's good stuff. Hey, you can always reach out to us on the socials. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Blue, excellent job in 64 again. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time in 65.
Yes, thank you, Mike.